everybody. My dad thinks his podcast is amazing, so please subscribe, give it 5 stars or whatever, and maybe he'll finally stop talking about it. Anyways, welcome to Sobriety.
What's up, everybody? This week we have another special guest, my good friend Kateland Maksanty. We're actually only about 20 days apart in our sobriety journey, so we've really grown up in the community together. We're going to talk about her journey to sobriety and a lot more. So let's welcome Kateland to the show. Kateland, what's up, girl? How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Thanks for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So let's dive right in. Let's talk about how you got sober, when that moment was, what made you realize, hey, this isn't for me anymore. It's time for me to get sober.
Yeah, goodness. I kind of had an abrupt breakup with alcohol. I never in my wildest thoughts did I think that this was going to be my path of life. Alcohol was my bestie for a really long time. And I guess I did have a rock bottom. And that was when I woke up in the hospital. Like, what the fuck am I doing here? And I heard my husband and my mom say, she needs help. And I was like, holy fuck, what have I done? What have I done? So yeah, it was a pretty tragic ending. But there was some time that got me there for sure. There was some incidences that got me there for sure. But that was my big wake up call. So
What were some of the incidences that led to that, if you don't mind elaborating on that?
Totally. So I would say really it started right around COVID. I am a dental hygienist, and so when everything shut down, I was at home for 3.5 months, acting like every 2 weeks it was my party time. I'll never get this time back. I didn't have a kid. It was just 2 more weeks of extended vacation, if you will. And I went all in. And when I went back to work, I would say I had it in mind that I was gonna like get it together, and that didn't really go over very well. I kept drinking the way that I had been, and my tolerance was insane. I did 75 hard, and I could only make it to day 47. This was about, I don't know, 9 months into me being back to work. And when someone brought that to my attention, I was like, absolutely not. I have to go 75 days without drinking. Are you joking? And I made it to day 47 because I had such a bad day that I just needed to drink about it. And so I did. And I guess from then on, like, I kind of realized, dang, like, alcohol is pretty, like, prominent in my life. Mm-hmm. But then I had a baby, and of course, you know, during pregnancy, I was not drinking. Mm-hmm. I did allow myself, because medical professionals still tell you it's okay to have like 1 glass of wine here and there. And so I did. I was like, sweet. Literally, my doctor, my pediatrician, told me to drink dark beer for my milk supply to come in. Like, that was advice given by a doctor in
Wow.
2022. And I ended up with really bad postpartum depression. Um, and it kind of just, I kind of just was drinking about it and kind of living it up like, this is my time,
Yeah.
I was sober for, 9 months. Now it's my turn to be the drunk one. And I guess that ended up catching up to me. And around my daughter's first birthday, was right around the holidays. I had found out some pretty tragic news that we won't go into detail, but it really sent me over the edge. And not only did I have postpartum depression, but then this shitty situation that just threw me into a spiral. And I just turned to alcohol as my main coping mechanism. That's all I knew. I was actually doing the Whole30 all that month, and it was my last night of the Whole30. And so, but I did allow myself to have clear liquor because it was healthier. Oh God. Yeah, and I just decided, oh, well, cool, I can have all the things now. So I had
Right.
all the things that night, and that's what landed me in the hospital. So, yeah.
Wow. Well, first of all, as a fellow mom, I want to thank you and honestly commend you for your honesty and your transparency. Something that I'm a huge advocate for are women, I mean, in or out of sobriety, whatever their struggles are, being really open with what comes along with having kids, on top of whether it be addiction, mental health, postpartum. I mean, and you don't even have to be struggling with addiction for that stuff to affect you. And as I was listening to your story and you're being very honest and transparent about, drinking and postpartum, I'm just like, wow, what a badass. Because women feel so ashamed. They feel so shameful for talking about these things. And we have this big stigma around it, and a lot of women don't talk about it. They don't seek treatment out of fear. So I just want you to know that the story that you just told was so empowering, was so strong and so moving, and I just you probably really just saved some people's lives with that story, and I wanted to really commend you for that. I appreciate your honesty and transparency. That's amazing. I love you already.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's
Yeah, it's
awesome.
postpartum is a serious thing, and it's a dark, dark place. And I am a huge advocate for making that known as a part of my story, because that's kind of where it all started. And then mommy wine culture on top of that. Are you kidding? It was like giving me permission.
Yeah.
That's a real thing, like mommy wine culture. And I've read a lot of articles about that. How, and you go on TikTok, you go on social media, and you literally see these people making jokes about like mommy needs her Chardonnay.
Yeah.
And, it's all fun and games at first until you really run into postpartum or you realize you have struggles like that. And you're like, what are we doing? We're not actually providing support to these women. We're just providing them with more problems. And we're not actually addressing the fact that, we should be helping them create lives that they don't need to escape from, circles where they feel comfortable talking. So that was a great way to start this podcast. Like,
Oh, thank
kudos to you. That's
you.
awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I've, with us talking and sharing, hearing you share, I know you also went through some tragedy kind of early on in your life. And I'll let you talk about that if you want to. And
Yeah.
I didn't know if that had an effect later on with your alcohol consumption. I didn't know if that was one of the things that, kind of got you to excess. I mean, look, hearing your story, I know it would for me. So I just didn't know how that affected you. If you could elaborate on that, that would be great.
Yeah, so when I was 14, my brother and I were in the same grade, and he was 15. He was 16 months older than I was. And he was my best friend. Um, my mom was a single mom, um, and wasn't really home a ton. Understandably so, trying to make ends meet, you know. But I ended up losing my brother when in a car accident when I was 14, he was 15. And it was a pretty big tragedy throughout the community. Two people had died in that car accident, and then another guy from our school. So three kids in a total of one weekend passed away just in our school, and oddly enough, all on the same bus. So it was a wild time. Anyways, um, you know, I kind of I don't know that that affected my drinking now. I'm sure if I like really dove into it, I could probably, find that sure that is connected in some way. But I kind of took the different route when that happened. I know a lot of kids that age can either go down like a really dark path after something like that happens and just like turn like very rebellious. I was the absolute opposite. I knew that this could happen to anybody, clearly, and I knew that I didn't want my parents to go through that again. They already lost one child. I don't want to do anything to jeopardize me making them upset with me, or I don't know, I just have this like goody inside that I was like,
Right.
I can't be a bad kid. Like, not that my brother was a bad kid, but like I can't do anything to jeopardize this. And so I kind of took the complete opposite route. And sure, I dabbled in drinking in high school and whatnot, but I definitely didn't let that take me down like a dark path, I would say. I think really just kind of watching, um and I hate to say this, but I come from a long line of drinkers, and it's what I knew. It's there was never any terrible negative that came with it, you know? It was just kind of what I saw as a part of being an adult. Um so yeah, I don't know that that like directly played into it, but I know that like on the anniversary days or whatever, I absolutely drank to excess to numb those feelings. So I know that throughout my journey of my drinking, that those days were not pleasant days.
Gotcha.
Well, and I'm just keep interjecting because I think I love your friends more than you do most of the time. But my brother and I are best friends, and he's older than me, about 3.5 years. And he was in active addiction for 20 years, to the point, we felt like we were planning more of a funeral than an intervention. And he's been sober for 4.5 years. He's great. He's thriving, like doing just better than I ever could imagine. But we have always been super close. And your story brought tears to my eyes because I just think, I don't know what I would do without him. And another thing that really hit home is he was always like straight A student, perfect, everything until he went to college. And I hear that story a lot too. Now, yours obviously has this foundation of tragedy. But it sounds like that was already there, right? Like you were already a good kid and cared about your parents. So when this horrible, horrible thing happened, you're like, the thought of putting my parents through more is agony. But something that I do see is a lot of kids, and you were a really good kid growing up too, people pleasers. And I wonder, like, did you ever feel like when you did start drinking or when it got out of hand, I feel like with my brother, with his use, it was more the first time in his life where he tricked himself into feeling like he was in control and not just doing what everyone around him expected to, which is a total lie you tell yourself, right? Because you're not in control at all. But I see that thing with people who are really like goody goody and people pleasers, and then they get older, and alcohol is so celebrated. You know, we drink when we're happy, we drink when we're sad, we drink when we're bored, we drink when we're hungry. Do you think that that sort of played into it, just kind of having this very people pleasing life, and finally you felt like I can like let go?
Yeah, I never really thought about it like that, but I am absolutely a people pleaser. I'm trying to get out of that. Really, really trying to learn boundaries and, saying no as a complete sentence. But yeah, that's definitely something I need to dive into my with my therapist.
Man.
I don't know. Was it me having control over something? Maybe, maybe. Um, yeah.
Yeah, just
That's
not
a
feeling
good
like that's
question.
something I've talked to
Yeah.
my brother about
That
too.
was
Yeah,
me. It was like I was,
because you played hockey, kind of the same thing.
and I was and I was a good kid and trying to do my best at literally everything and didn't want to let anybody down. And then it's like when I let myself down, and then I wanted to escape,
Mhm.
and that's where the drinking really came in. I got to put that good guy vibe aside and not feel anything or numb, and I think that's what
Mhm.
really. And then it just kind of snowballed into
Yeah, and when you're in like your
shit for 30
teens and
years.
early 20s, like that's a normal thing for people to
Well,
do,
sure,
right? Like
experiment.
dabble
Yeah,
and in sports and stuff. And I would imagine for you too, like, oh, my friends are drinking, my parents drink. Like, I mean, you go to weddings and all these things. And the difference is the drinking to excess,
yes,
right? It's like
yeah.
when we used to go out, you'd be like, you're not going to finish that glass. Like the idea of not
Mhm.
finishing a beer or a glass of wine. And I think too with my brother, he's like, it was the first time in my life that I thought I deserve this. I deserve not to have to be this vanilla version of myself that people expect me to be. I just want to be a normal kid and drink and party. I don't have to be perfect all the time. And it's really just you lying to yourself.
Yeah.
You're trying
Yeah.
to mask other things. So I just thought that was a funny correlation because when you said you were goody goody, I was like, I hear that all the time. Like I was the perfect kid. I was not bad. That's
Yeah.
wild.
And that's what's scary about it, is it's such a slow progression of I was not always like this. How did I get here? You know? Um,
That's scary.
yeah. I mean, that's one of the kind of going back to like goody goody. I was an athlete when I was younger. I was a competitive figure skater. That's one of the things that
Yeah.
Ryan and I like kind of bonded
Yeah.
over at first, because I was like, oh, hockey. My brother was an amazing hockey player. And that ice rink family that it doesn't matter where you are. You're like, oh, I got
We're
another
all
ice
together.
buddy. We're a family.
That's right.
So, yeah, I mean, I was always just trying to do my best, but yeah, maybe when I got into college and didn't have these, sports to go after or whatever, I was just kind of like, oh, well, now I can do what I want to do, which is experiment and party.
Yeah.
And then that just kind of slowly, like, I got money. That's what happened. I graduated and got adult money. And I was like, oh, I can afford wine now. I can afford it every single day. This is wonderful.
Yeah. I mean, and I grew up in performing arts and it's very similar to sports, right? Like when you go to with sports, you go to these different events after a game or, for promoting yourself for figure skating. And especially as you get older, there's always alcohol. There's always champagne. There's always this. It's always celebratory. In performing arts, we had cast parties, sort of the same thing. So then you grow up and you have money and you've been around these people who like wear suits and have money and they always have champagne and they're always at fancy parties and you're like, now I'm the proponent of the fancy party. So yeah, I can see that. That was something you struggled with too. It was like you're successful and you have money. So
Now
now I can.
it's now what? Now I need friends around me to party, especially at a young age that I had money. And then it was like, okay, well, so and so doesn't want to come out because they don't have money. I got you covered. Come on, I'll buy you drinks. And then
because I needed
that's how you
someone
gain
to
friends
come down with me.
to come party with. That's right. I need to drag your ass
Yes.
down to my level, so come out and come
Yes.
drinking with me. I was notorious for that, which is terrible.
That's how we met. I remember you started out as the guy that I just used to put my drinks on his bar tab, right? Because he thought I was cute. I mean, in all seriousness, like I love you, but that's how it starts. Because you're right. And again, even though I don't struggle with that, like who wants to go out and get drunk by themselves? No, because then I have to look at myself as this like lush. Like if you're partying with me, then let's go. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, you said when your turning point was in the hospital, right? And John was there, your husband.
Yep.
How have things with John changed? Leading up to that point where he realizes, man, she's got a problem. We need to do something about it. And then kind of like how that progressed from that day. How you started Reframe, all that, getting that trust back with John. How did all that look? And then kind of where you're at today in your marriage.
Yeah, so I was actually right before this reading the first few days of my journal. And I had completely forgotten about this, but the months leading up to, I would say the 5 months leading up to me, my last stint of drinking, I was a heavy daily drinker. Heavy. I never went to work intoxicated or anything like that, but like the second I got home, it was like until midnight and then like repeat. Yeah. So, so by the time my husband would get home, I'd already be fucking gone, And I didn't care that I was drinking alone at home because I was like, whatever. But then I started to get to be like a mean drunk. And this scenario that happened, I just really like took it out on him the last 5 months, I would say. And I was just mean. And would just pick fights for no fucking reason. And then he'd bring it up to me the next day and I'd be like, I don't really know what you're talking about. But then like I'd have to play it off because I didn't want to seem like the drunk, like, oh yeah, I'm really sorry about that, And I could see what was happening. I could see that I was being mean, but I never wanted to think of it as alcohol being the problem. And he is so patient and so kind. There were a few times in the last few years maybe that he would bring up my drinking and I shut that shit down so quick. I was like, absolutely not. I am a grown woman. I do as I please. I'm fine. I have a job. I, have a successful life, a beautiful home. Like, I am fine. Don't fucking talk about my drinking, Like, I know what a problem looks like and I don't have a problem. And he knew not to bring that topic up again. That topic was off limits.
That's it.
And he didn't. And he just fucking dealt with it. This sweet man just dealt with it. And when I heard him say that, I was like, fuck, I really fucked up, And I was like, there's no hiding from this. Like there's no excuse I even have in me to blame. This is 100% me. And I just really had to own up and take accountability for that. And I would say in the first few days, I thought for sure he was going to leave me. I thought that he was just letting me recoup, and not give me the terrible news while I was already down. Because the guilt and shame and just embarrassment and all of the things that came with this incident, it was just so, so bad. And it I had to be honest with him. I had to tell him how bad my drinking had got, that I was coming home and drinking bourbon, shots of bourbon, before he even got home. So he didn't know that, like, that was already being done, because then I'd open my bottle of wine, like, oh, this is the first thing that I'm having, like, cover that right up, because I liked wine aged in bourbon barrels. So I was like, let me just cover that up real quick. And I started kind of hiding it, and not telling him how much and sneaking at the end of my bottle. He would already be upstairs or whatever, and I'd be like, all right, let me just be really quiet. And like, I'd open up, I'm sure he fucking heard me, but like, I'd open up the, cabinet, and not close it all the way, because it was a very loud shut, and so I had to be honest with him and tell him how much I was drinking. And so that kind of brought up some trust issues there. And he was, very, I've never made a commitment like that other than saying I do, I'm sure he thought that this was going to be a very short-lived thing. And I would say in the first week or so, it was actually day 3 when we had our first successful conversation, to where I knew that he wasn't going to leave me. I knew that he was going to stay by my side. He actually, the way I kind of knew he was supportive was that he gifted me a book called Quit Like a Woman. And I literally, it made me cry. It just gave me the chills thinking about that. It made me cry. I felt truly supported, that, I guess by this time I had found Reframe, because that's where I heard about the book. And I was just like, I need all the things. Give me all the things to help me get rid of alcohol, And he's been my biggest fucking supporter. He has been nothing short of amazing. He didn't drink with me for the first 120 days. He didn't say, I'm not going to drink with you for X amount of time. He just didn't. I think I'd also scared him a little bit, he said, a lot of it. And he didn't want anything to do with alcohol for quite some time. But that, just that silent action made me feel so supported too. And I can honestly say, I don't think we've had like a yelling fight since I've gotten sober 485 days ago or something like that. Our communication is so much better now. And Reframe has taught me to be open and vulnerable. And I realized that's what I need to do in my marriage, was be raw and open and vulnerable. And that's why I started telling him, how much I was actually drinking, because I'm like, I need to be 100% on this. Like, I need cats out of the bag. Like, I cannot hide this anymore. And yeah, things are better than I could have ever imagined.
Yeah,
hands down.
It's amazing what happens when we take alcohol out of the equation, isn't it? In our relationships, it's just, and I've seen your stories on Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that, and you guys just look. Number one, you guys look amazing together, but two, you look so happy. your family unit just looks so incredibly happy now. And just your transformation has just it's been incredible. I mean, we're only like 20 days away. So you and I have really grown up together.
Yes, we
In
have.
this sobriety. So it's crazy how kind of where we started and where we're at, being able to see each other go through this has just been, it's just been absolutely amazing. It's been crazy.
That's
It has.
awesome.
Yeah. I just don't, I don't know. When we met 8 years ago, I had just had a terrible binge weekend of drinking. And I moved up here to Northern Virginia. And I remember the first time, it was within like probably the first week that I got here. I had gone on a date with my now husband. And I remember thinking to myself, dang, he doesn't really drink. He does CrossFit. He doesn't drink. He's a hard worker. Like, he is a rare breed. And I just remember thinking, I need him in my life. I want to be like him. Like, I'm leaving this party girl behind. And I'm going to start doing what he does. And I did. For the first, like, few years, I was successfully moderating, if you will. Like, I wasn't that wild party girl. I felt like I was drinking responsibly. And truthfully, I think I brought him down. Like, I ended up rubbing off on him. Like, slowly but surely, I was like, yeah, isn't this nice? Like, we can unwind together. We can bond over, like, these drinks. But thankfully, we had such a foundation of good healthiness that, like, it's like he's so happy that he has the original me back, And this is the way I'm happiest, is sober. And I just know that alcohol just can't be an option for me, because we know the slow progression that Kateland has. So we won't do that again,
Not getting back in that pattern.
Yeah. So
Do you feel like it's almost like, and I've asked you the same question, when you think back on that, it's almost like you're just watching someone else's story, like from a third party? Because it was the same thing with him. Many times I'd be like, listen, it's getting to the point where you're going to have to choose between alcohol and me. And I don't want to have to put that on you, but like, it's starting to become detrimental to me. And it was so quick for you to be like, well, I mean, and you never said see ya, but it was like very clear in action what you were choosing. And now, he'll go back and watch, just random TikTok videos or come across a text message, or we'll be talking about something. And he's like, I can't even, like, the fact that that's me, just like,
don't even recognize that.
Yeah, I don't even recognize, like, I cannot believe that.
Yeah, that person that I became was in a very, very, very dark place. And I thought that alcohol would get me out of that dark place. And little did I know, it was just keeping me.
Yeah, shoot you right back down.
And just, people can say all they want, alcohol is a depressant. I was like, it does not make me depressed. It makes me very happy. But I didn't understand, like, the full circle of what that meant until Reframe taught me, like, what it's actually doing to my body and my brain. And I was like, oh, shit. Oh, that's what they meant.
So speaking of energy, you have the little one, and I'm sure she keeps you very busy. She is absolutely adorable. And I love when you guys do your little videos and stuff together, or you guys are doing stuff together. And sometimes it's funny because she would climb up on your lap during a meeting, which was absolutely hilarious. So how has that changed since being sober? Because the way I tell, I mean, Jessica was talking about, how you glow, and talking about John, but I see you glow even more when you're with your daughter, and anytime you talk about her. If you just talk about that, how that's changed.
Oh my gosh. Complete 180. Like, I've always loved my daughter, of course, right? But um I I got sober when she was about 15 months old, and those first 15 months I was just surviving. And I think people that, have had children understand what that means to just survive parenthood. But I think that I took it to an extreme, because not only was I just trying to get used to surviving this new parenthood thing, I was taking every single moment possible to apparently numb the good too. I didn't realize, like, I heard this one time, you can't selectively numb. And I was like, oh, that resonates so much with me, because you can't. I mean, I had moments where I was like, this isn't fun. Like, what, like, when is this whole parenting thing gonna get fun? Like, it's actually kind of miserable at times. And it was because I was drinking all the time and spending all my time just like on the couch with her, like, just doing whatever, and I wasn't engaging in anything because I was just spending all my time recovering. And now, oh my God, I am so present. Like, I have so much fun. My creativity has come back so much. Like, I've gotten so into art and everything again, and it's been so much fun. And like, I'm not so lazy anymore. So like, I'm doing things, and we cook together, and I let her make a mess, and I don't get irritated at it anymore. Like, the irritability is at a solid zero. I'm not going to say solid zero, but so much better than what it was. So I have so much more patience, and she feels that, like, she knows, like, oh, mommy's happy. Like, she can feel it, because then I feel like I have a happier baby on my hands. And I say baby, she's not a baby anymore. She's 2.5. But,
Oh.
yeah, I mean, that whole, motherhood thing, it's actually joyful now. I didn't really understand that I was numbing the joy as well, and the love. Like, I'm obsessed with her. Obsessed with her. And like, I've always loved her, but I don't know, something about being sober and just feeling the love is so much better. I'm like, fuck, why did I numb all that for so long, But at the end of the day, I'm glad that it was so early on in her life that I realized this, because I will forever remember all of these great things. So that
And
brings
she
me a
will
lot of
too.
joy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to be such an amazing resource for her too. Because I think about that, like, our daughter's 13 going on 14. She's going to go to parties, she's going to drink. And we already have those conversations with her about, listen, you can call me at 3-4 o'clock in the morning. I don't care what's going on. You're never going to get reprimanded for making smart decisions. And we don't know if our kids are going to have these same issues. And so the fact that you will be able to one day share your story with her, which I know right now it seems like forever away, but that's the silver lining to it, that you can sit down and be like, listen, I get it. You don't have to be fearful of me. I love you. Like, whatever it is, we power through it together. And that's also a really, really cool thing too. Good job, Mama.
Thanks.
So I've talked about, since the day I quit, since the day I joined Reframe was the same day, I have not had a trigger or a craving whatsoever for beer, for alcohol. Have you had any? I don't know if I've ever even heard you talk about that, even in a meeting. Like, have you ever had any like triggers or cravings? If so, how have you dealt with them up to this point?
So when you said that, maybe it was on an earlier podcast that I was listening to, or maybe it was in a meeting. I don't really recall. But I thought to myself, I've learned the difference between like a craving and a thought. And I was like, I think I've had cravings, but they were never cravings to the point where I would actually drink. Like, since I woke up that morning in the hospital, and when I got home, I knew if there were a drink in front of me, I would not be able to touch it. And since that day, that has not, absolutely, no matter how bad I thought I wanted to drink or romanticized the idea of drinking, I didn't know this was a thing, but playing that tape forward, I know at the time I didn't know this was a thing. But I know how that ended, and that does not leave me. That night does not leave me. And I don't know. Yes, I've had cravings, but I know 1000% I've never wanted to act on them. So I guess, yes, I have had cravings. But nothing that's like ever gotten close to me wanting to drink, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. Now we're
Yeah.
even more alike than I thought. I mean, I knew you and I were already alike in so many ways, and it's like you're kind of going through the same thing I have, which is, and maybe it's because we decided, we're done, right? And things have just gotten so much better in our life. And like you said, playing the tape forward, it's always been huge for me. If I ever had a thought, and to me, a trigger and a craving are different than a thought, right? Because things just pop up in your head. And as soon as that thought would come in, I'd be like, yeah, but okay. So if something does happen, your marriage is over, your relationship with your kids is completely gone, and your life's pretty much fucking over because you know what's going to happen. You're just going to dive into it. So those thoughts don't even enter my mind anymore because I know, I, if I ever get to that point where I get the fuck it, something's wrong. And I know that, I'm diving it, going to that deep end and never coming back. So yeah,
For sure.
Same way for sure.
Now that I think about it, I think to the early days, and I had actually read in my journal, like I said, right before this, that first weekend. So my incident happened on a Saturday night. The following Saturday was Kentucky Derby.
Mm.
And I was helping my sister. My sister throws a huge party every year, and I was helping her set up for it. And her friend came up and started talking, and they were talking about like the drinks and like the fun that they're going to have. And that, for the first time, I was like, holy shit, I have FOMO. And I started getting irritable, and I was like, no, you will not drink tomorrow. But it made me a little angry inside. And then a little bit of time passed, and I was like, why the fuck? Like, I couldn't say anything. I didn't feel like I could come out and be like, sissy, that's what I call my sister. I feel like I need a drink right now. Like, I was still very like hush hush about it. And as soon as we went inside and I got something to eat and drank, like some water, I was like, oh shit, that feeling's gone. That was weird. Maybe I was just hungry. And then a few days later, I learned about HALT, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. And for me, it's also thirsty because I always need something in my hand. So yeah, I would honestly say, like, the times that I had maybe cravings or triggers, it was because I was either hungry or thirsty, or I do like to touch on this as well, because I think it's super important for women to realize this. Not only did I have really bad postpartum depression, but at 15, I was diagnosed with something called PMDD, which is insane depression and irritability, like 2 weeks before my period. So it's like 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. And if undiagnosed, you basically look like a crazy girl. Like you're just what the fuck? And I noticed that first month, I was like, why am I so irritable? Like, and like, just why am I craving right now? And I started paying attention over the next couple months. Oh my God, it's right around my PMDD cycle time. That, like, so I realized, okay, I worked with my coach and I was like, okay, so on these times when I'm like in that peak bad time of that, I have to have alone time. Like, what makes me feel better? It's never that I wanted to drink, but like, how do I get back to like a calm, happy place? Because I don't have alcohol to cope anymore. So she told me basically to what was it? Oh, take days off, like take a day and have like do what makes you feel fulfilled and take care of you so your cup can be filled to keep going. And so I've kind of gotten bad about it, but I try to allot 1 month or 1 day every month where I am kid free and my husband just takes her or someone takes her and I can just paint and be on as many meetings as I want and go get a massage if I want and like do the things that fill my cup because that's how I know it was all about breaking the habit at the end of the day. I never would drink over the cravings, but I needed to change that neural pathway. And once I figured out what my triggers were, irritability around that time frame, it made it very helpful for me to come up with a plan, you know?
So someone's just come into reframe. Somebody's new within the first couple weeks. What kind of advice would you personally give that person to keep them on their path of sobriety, or to help them out to keep them on their path of sobriety?
So the meetings saved my life.
That's a common theme.
Yeah, yeah. The meetings saved my life. I
Yep.
do think that the daily tasks you gotta give it a good chunk of time. I think around like month 2, I stopped being as diligent with them. But I do think that learning that base of what alcohol does to your brain and body made me feel like I'm not crazy. I was like, oh, my brain is just doing what I've trained it to do. And all I need to do, easier sounds easier said than done. But I need to change this habit, you know? And so I would stress the importance of doing the daily tasks, but also coming to meetings and take some time if you need to just listen in, but show up to as many as you can. As many as you can. I remember seeing your face, Ryan. You were one of the ones that was always on camera. So was I, because it held me accountable, you know? And I needed to dive in and just do anything I could. And I'm an outgoing person, so it's kind of just in my nature to be chatty Cathy in in the chat or whatever. Um but being vulnerable and putting yourself out there. I always say it's like being a kid again in those rooms, you know? Like, you can genuinely type in the chat, "Hey, I live in Virginia. Anyone live near me? Want to meet up?" Or "Hey, I am, 33 with a toddler. Anyone else like that out there that wants to connect?" And you just stay in the chat and you reach out to people and you put yourself out there. And, you go through your fair share, especially in the beginning, you go through your fair share of trying to make connections. And then you stay on the path and then this person goes this way and you don't hear from them
Yep.
ever again, but eventually you find your people that stick and go through this journey with you. And that is what has kept me sober, is finding my people. Having these people that just get it. My husband will never get it. And I'm thankful for that.
Yeah.
I'm thankful he will never get it, because that would mean that he has a problem too.
Right.
So, I'm thankful that I have these people, but I wouldn't have had these people if I didn't put myself out there. And doing that on a virtual platform where that Ryan doesn't know anyone in my personal life, right? So he's not going to run and tell Sandra that he just heard this about me on a meeting, whatever, it's like we're all in it for the same thing. And that taught me to be more vulnerable in my real life, So, I think that alone, by doing that teaches you a lot of life skills in real life. So, yeah.
So earlier you said John bought you that book, Quit Like a Woman.
Mm-hmm.
That was I think my second or third book that I read. That was my favorite book. Did you read the whole thing? Did you get through it?
I didn't read this about me. I'm really bad. I have ADHD and it takes a lot
So does
for
this
me
one.
to start and actually finish a book.
Yeah.
So no, I did not finish it, but from what I did read, it was very good. I actually NQTD, never question the decision. Because that is, I think she's the one that coined that, right? But
I don't know if she coined it, but it's
mentioned in
all
her
over.
book.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, I was like, yes.
Yeah.
Anytime that I think that this is a good idea to drink again, never question the decision that I started in the first place.
Damn right. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I got one more question and we'll get you back to your family. Hard-hitting question. So, where is the craziest, funniest place you've ever peed? And let me know the story behind it.
While drinking.
While drinking. I'm sorry. While drinking. Yes. While drinking.
While drinking.
Oh, God. I don't know if I want to go to hell for this one. Oh, goodness. So
that's the one I want to hear.
I know. And, I was like, I talked to my best friend before this and I said, listen, because she was with me when this happened. And I said, I don't really know if I should go there, but she's like, you have to. You have to. She's like, I still have the picture. And I was like, you need to, I was going to say burn it, but it's fucking virtual. So it's there forever. So I don't really know why we had the great idea. I don't know. We were just intoxicated and lived near a cemetery. And we wanted to go hang out at the cemetery. And a drunk girl's gotta pee. And so it was in a cemetery, okay?
Now you're going to hell.
I will never, ever, ever live that down. Like, my best friend's literally, oh my God.
It's
So
okay.
embarrassing, but you know what? I was like, it's an epic question. I gotta give my epic answer. My other answer is in the bar. Okay, this is I'll go ahead and tell too. So
love it, even better.
In the bar, there was a line for the bathroom, and I was like, I'm not kidding. I gotta be next. And I was banging on the door. I was like, please, someone let me in. Like, I gotta go. And it didn't happen fast enough. And there was like it was like a dark corner, and I just had to go into the dark corner, and these poor people that had to clean that up, I'm sure, at some point. I'm like, oh my God, I couldn't even make it into the bathroom. It had to be outside in a dark corner, outside of the bathroom in the facility. I can't believe some of the things that I did while I was intoxicated.
Did you go back to that place afterwards?
I'm sure I did, because it was a sequel.
I think it's so funny, all the embarrassing shit or the places I got kicked out of. And then immediately went back to that fucking place like nothing happened.
Right?
Because they've seen the worst of you. So you're like, you already know.
What else could I possibly do? Kateland, it was so much fun having you on. As always, it's so great talking to you. It was great meeting you in real life not long ago. Actually, a few months ago in Dallas. That was amazing. And we live actually, I don't know, 5-6 hours away. So at some point, we're going to have to do a meetup, or if you guys ever come to Knoxville area again.
Yep.
But anyway, thank you so much for joining. I love you like a sister. And I can't wait to see you again.
I've thoroughly enjoyed getting to know you, and on the podcast, it is just so much fun. I wish we lived closer, because we would seriously be best friends.
Yes, we can be best friends anyways. And the feeling is mutual. I think everything that you're doing is awesome, and you give that baby a squeeze for us too.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kateland.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Kateland.
it.
Bye.
Bye.
If you love the podcast, which I know you do, please like, subscribe,
and hit that notification bell to get
Boom.
notified every time we post.
That's right. Dropping them, baby. Word.